right, it looks like we're good. We're good to go. We will go ahead and call to order the Pocosin Planning Commission meeting for Monday, September 21st, 2020. And we will begin by saying an invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. If you are able to and want to, go ahead and join us in the invocation. Lee has volunteered to offer the invocation today.
Let us pray. We pray for all who hold positions of leadership and responsibility in our community life. Let your blessing rest upon us and make us responsive so that our community may be an example of justice and compassion. Amen.
Join us for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, and the next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. Last meeting, we just had a regular session. Does anyone have a motion to approve the minutes as written?
I had two minor corrections, which I think these are probably kind of edits. On page 2, under the paragraph there, 1, 2, 3, 4, fourth paragraph, I just see there's an extra was in there. That there was a business was operating at the address. I would strike that second was. I think that's just kind of a little edit. And then on the next page, nothing content-wise, but just editing on the page 3. Mr. Horton, this is on the 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs down. Mr. Horton moved the conditions, and I wonder if that might not be better if it's noted the conditions of the conditional use permit. He didn't make a motion.
Noted.
Yeah,
Is that
noted.
what you said?
I said Mr. Horton, instead of moved the conditions, might be better served to put noted
Yes.
that the conditions of the conditional use permit should include or referenced or something other than moved, because moved kind of makes you think that he's making a motion and he actually
Right.
was just calling our attention to something. That's just two minor little edits. I don't know you can do that if you think it's wise, but I thought maybe the second was not necessary, and then the
Noted. Yeah.
little wording, okay. Otherwise, if those are corrected, I think I would make a motion to accept them as written.
I make a motion to second it as amended.
All right, thank you so much. Commissioner Stevens?
I wasn't here. Can I still approve it?
Abstain.
Aye.
Commissioner Mullins?
Not a commissioner.
I apologize. Commissioner Griebel?
Aye.
Commissioner Fenixon?
Aye.
Commissioner Deaver?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
And Chairwoman Emmett.
Aye. All right, and that motion is passed. Next item on our agenda is the audience for visitors. Now, this is an opportunity for any visitors to approach the commission and speak of anything that they would like to. Now, the only thing we do ask that it's for any topic besides the two public hearing items that we have this evening. So if you would like to address the commission on any other topics, now is the time that you are able to do so. And as I see none, we'll close the audience for visitors, and we will move on to the public hearings for this evening. Okay, the first public hearing for tonight is a request by Victory Church applicant for a conditional use permit to authorize the operation of a farmer's market at 0 Victory Boulevard, tax map parcel 18-1-121, zoned R&D, Research and Development. And at this time, we will have staff go ahead and give the presentation.
All right, good evening. I'll just mention for the benefit of the commission that this is actually the second item in your packet, so you'll have to turn a few pages to get to it. But in my presentation for a conditional use permit for parcel 18-1-121 off of Victory Boulevard. So the request is to operate a weekly farmers market on the subject parcel. This property is currently zoned R&D for research and development. And as farmers markets are not specifically permitted within this district, we are asking for a use permit as per Article 1, Section 1-8 of the City Zoning Ordinance. So the location parcel is 11 1/3 acres. It is owned by Victory Church. It is currently undeveloped and partially wooded. Around 3 acres of that parcel are cleared space, and that was where they are holding the farmers market. There's a rough gravel entrance on the property, but no paved parking area. And it has 850 feet of frontage on Victory Boulevard. It's near the city limits to our west. All adjacent properties are undeveloped, with the exception of the Victory Church property to the west, which fronts on East Yorktown Road. So it's an aerial of the property, as you can see. There's a giant thing in the way, but all the adjacent properties are wooded and undeveloped, and you see it fronts Victory Boulevard right there. This is just showing the zoning, so all the blue around is R&D, research and development. The one area to the north that is zoned R1 is also undeveloped. So the zoning is research and development / office. This is our light industrial, manufacturing, and office use district for the Big Woods area. Retail, service, and childcare are allowed as accessory uses only. Commercial and residential primary uses in this district are prohibited. And R&D does allow houses of worship along with traditionally accepted accessory uses, provided they get a conditional use permit. So the proposed use is temporary and seasonal in nature, so even though it is not mentioned specifically for this zoning district, it would have a negligible impact on current or future R&D development. So these are just some pictures recently taken of the property. So this is the undeveloped field area where they would be holding the farmers market. This is the entrance to the property, so there's a bit of a gravel path going across the ditch onto the property, and this is the gravel pathway adjoining Victory Boulevard. So that is the current entrance. So the proposed use is a farmer's market for vegetables, fruits, and home-style items. It currently operates on Saturdays, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. The applicant specified that there's around 25 vendors, maybe around 25 parked vehicles, and 50 to 75 patrons expected at any given time. They have been in contact with the Pocosin Police Department, who has informed them that a maximum of 50 or 60 cars on this property would be acceptable to them for traffic safety purposes. And there is no permanent structures. It's all temporary tents, tables, and out of vehicles. And our zoning ordinance does define farmers markets as a place where farmers or other people who are engaged in truck farming gather regularly for the purpose of selling produce and goods produced on their farms, and this does include the sale of seafood. So here's just a couple pictures of the current use, taken, I think, a few weeks ago. So this is the kind of operation we are expecting. It's just a handful of tents, vehicles, and pedestrians, not very impactful and temporary in nature. So if recommended for approval, staff is proposing the following conditions. The Planning Commission is free to amend these as they see fit. The first and last two are general conditions that we apply to all our conditional use permits, or at least most of them. The ones in the middle, though, were created for this application based on York County standards for farmers and flea markets. So I'll just go over them. The first one is the use would comply with all local, state, and federal permits, licenses, and regulations for the cities, and this would mean that any signs would require a sign permit, and the operation would need to have a valid business license, but that's about it. 2, the approved use shall be for a farmer's market and shall not be interpreted for any other use that cannot reasonably be categorized as such. Number 3, the use shall only be operated during daylight hours, a maximum of 1 day per week. Again, this is similar to what York County says for flea markets. Number 4, goods, materials, or products associated with the use shall not be stored out of doors on site when it is not in operation. Number 5, the permittee shall be responsible for providing adequate off-street parking area. No vehicles associated with this use shall be parked within the right-of-way of Victory Boulevard. Number 6, the entrance and property shall be operated in such a manner as to prevent dirt and debris from being tracked onto Victory Boulevard. York County requires any farmers markets to have a VDOT standard entrance. We thought that was a little bit of an excessive requirement, but we've adopted this, which is kind of the spirit of that requirement. It's a state standard we give to construction entrances. Basically, if you're not a developed use, don't track mud or anything that would impede the right-of-way on Victory Boulevard. Number 7, the permittee shall coordinate with the Pocosin Police Department to ensure adequate vehicle safety and traffic signage is provided on site. Again, they seem to already be in contact, so this is sort of fulfilling that. Number 8, if at any time the specified permitted use on the property is discontinued for 2 or more years, this permit is null and void. And number 9, City Council reserves the right to review and amend the conditions as they see fit. So with that, I'll be happy to take any questions that you have.
Does the existing, I know the farmer's market exists today. Do they have an existing conditional permit right now, or is this the first one that we're?
No, this is their application for it. I did not apply previously for it. I understand that the use was located on the church property and was moved to this site, to this adjacent parcel, a month or 2 ago.
Right.
So this is a relatively recent use.
And the other thing was, how long is it valid? It looks like it's pretty much open-ended until something else comes around or we find something that we need to use or the property is used for otherwise.
That's correct. Under these conditions, there is no time limit to this use.
Okay.
Regarding business license, is that one license for the farmer's market, or does each individual vendor have to have a license with the city?
I believe it would be just for the blanket church or whatever group that is running the farmers market in general. And after checking with the assessor's office, they do currently have a valid business license.
Thank you.
Do we have the latitude to include a COVID type clause? I went up there one time, and everyone was very close together. No one was wearing masks. That was early in the COVID season, if you will. So I don't know if that could be put in there, that social distancing, appropriate CDC things. I don't know if that's something.
I don't know.
I actually think under condition 1, you've sort of got that covered. The use must comply with all local, state, and federal permits, licenses, and regulations. It is a state regulation that the governor's various resolutions, some of them have been lifted, some of them still in effect. But we are in phase 3 right now, or sort of a modified phase 2, phase 3 kind of middle ground there. And that certainly is a requirement. But, you might be aware that nationwide there's been a debate over just how much you could require people to use masks.
I haven't heard that.
And that sort of thing. So we would expect them to operate within the state guidelines. If there is a complaint, it would actually go to the health department to follow up on.
Yeah, my comment is along the same lines. If you go to farmers markets, sampling goods out of the sort of ambiance, little chilies or whatever, and obviously, buffets and all of that type of thing are a site of transmission. So I would hope the vendors would be very respectful of that. We're very proud of our COVID numbers here in Pocosin, and we would like to keep our people safe, obviously, so just a question. I have a question in terms of the VDOT entrance that York County required. Since we're sort of resting under number 6, would that imply if, for example, it was heavy rains beforehand, when I did a drive over the site myself today, and that entrance, it's gravel, but then it goes into grass, festival where we have lots of cars, and how quickly our wonderful Pocosin soil can get very muddy. So my question would be, in the event that there's been rain before a Saturday, if that's when they're going to have it, that would be a determination whether they would be a go or a no-go.
It would be up to them, as long as they are able to comply with these conditions. I know in previous weeks that they have called off the farmer's market because of heavy rains. It is an open field, so it is a concern whether or not that field is soggy and able to be stood upon. But as if they're able to hold it without tracking substantial muck onto Victory Boulevard, they would be able to do that.
And that's something the Pocosin Police Department would be interested in as well. I feel like I'm talking with a gag on me here, but
On standby.
Questions? Okay. Thank you, Dan. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and open up the public hearing for this agenda item. If you would like to participate and approach the podium, please just state your name and address.
My name is George Ford. I live at 8 Elm Street. I'm actually in partnership with the Victory Church to put on the farmers market. So some of the questions you guys had, I might be able to answer for you, like yours, you're worried about the weather and so forth. The last 2 weeks, we've actually canceled, and we've got 2 beautiful Saturdays, but we've had so much rain, the lot was so saturated.
Mr. George, if you could just use the microphone, if you don't mind.
Turn it on, flip the switch.
It gets transferred over out.
Is that better?
Yes.
I'll hold it away.
Yeah.
The last 2 Saturdays, we've actually canceled the Pocosin Farmers Market, and we had beautiful Saturdays, but unfortunately, we received so much rain that the field was saturated. It wasn't safe for vehicles to park on. So that was one of the questions. The other question was dirt and rubbish washing off. We're aware of that as well, and we also police that as well. And I also like to start by saying the city, because it's been amazing since we started that, between the police department and planning commission and everyone else, it's been great. So if you've been out there, I'll address your concern about the mask. We've had some issues, not so much issues, but the governor's mandates changed twice since June 6th. Initially, the current rule is all the vendors have to wear a mask. And that's the way it is now. That went away, then it just came back. There's no sampling allowed at all right now, so we don't allow any sampling at all. And I do my best to police, vendors wearing masks. But at the end of the day, I can only suggest it. And if they continue to be a habitual offender, we won't invite them back. But so far, it's been a very successful event, not only for Pocosin, but for the vendors as well. Any questions I can answer that you guys may have?
What are the variety of store holders do you anticipate?
Well, so currently, this started on a whim. Last good thing, I thought, I've lived here for a long time. Why doesn't Pocosin have a farmer's market? And I grew up here, and before I moved here, I lived in Hampton. My father and I would come over and buy fish from the docks, and we'd go to Wilson's Farm to buy vegetables and take them back from the hand. As I've gotten a little bit older, I thought,
Mr. George, I'm sorry. We have to relay to the folks at home, so if you're not using the mic, it's not going to be picked up. Yeah, the session's
a little
being
bit better,
televised.
yeah.
Sorry.
hello, yep. Try that one, yeah.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
you.
So that being said, I've been volunteering to other organizations in other cities and visiting, say, the Portsmouth Farmers Markets. That's been there for 15 years. And, in May or June, I got the idea, why doesn't Pocosin have one? It just doesn't make any sense. And I started asking people, and people, hey, we've approached Pocosin before and said, hey, well, yeah, that's a great idea. Just you go ahead and do it. And I guess I'm a little hard-headed. I thought, that's got to be easy. You just bring farmers in and you just sell their produce in there. You bring the fishermen in to sell directly to the public as opposed to selling to, to the resellers. And it's been great. I got to be honest with you. So, we started on a whim. I contacted some local businesses, and then I talked to Jamie Bold, the preacher over at Victory Church, and I got to tell you, he was like, let's do it. And I'm like, wow, this is crazy. We're going to do it. So we started doing it. So we got Wilson's Farm comes out there. They sell some amazing produce. We have Rising Tide Bakery that sells fresh bread and fresh cinnamon rolls. And we have, small businesses, mom and pop shops that sell apple butter and things like that. We have some crafts and so forth. We actually had T-Mobile come out for about 4 weeks and they have a business license in Pocosin. So the way it works is, yes, the Pocosin Farmers Market has a business license, but if you're a reseller, if you resell a product you did not create, you have to have a business license in Pocosin. But we don't want resellers. We made an exception for T-Mobile for a couple of reasons. One, they have a really great setup and it draws attention from the main road. It's a huge, huge vehicle. And it went great until we ran into our first issue where it rained too much and they got stuck and had to get towed out of there. So we've learned from our mistakes. But a majority of the people out there are small mom and pop vendors, the people that they live in Pocosin. They're going to sell shellfish, or crabs and oysters. Miss Mary Seafood comes in from Kilmarnock every other week to sell there as well. And for me, it's been great. And the reason I started this is 20 years from now, I want to walk through there with my grandkids. That's my goal. And I've also spoken to the Pocosin Police Foundation and Kiwanis. I just want to get this thing started and hand it off to a charity. And we're not there yet. We're probably going to have to. That'll probably happen next year. But I've met with a company today that's out of Suffolk that wants to sell fresh pork. You can go out there and buy their fresh pork sausage as opposed to going to a grocery store. And especially in the COVID times, you want to know where your produce comes from. You want to know where your meat comes from. And that's why I'm so passionate about this. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you all for your time.
I invite anybody else who would like to speak on the topic. All right, well, at this time, actually, before I open up the topic for discussion among the commission, I would like to just state that because of my involvement in discussions between the organizers of the farmers market and Kiwanis, I will be able to facilitate any discussions, but I will recuse myself from any discussions about it, and I will abstain from vote. With that, I open it up for discussion. Oh, sorry. Before I do that, I will close the public hearing. Thank you. And we'll open it up for discussion.
Yeah, I think it's well designed. I think it's certainly a usable entity for the city, and I don't see any negatives. I see just positives.
The only concern that I see is the definition of the farmer's market and the type of products that are going to be sold, which I think it's a wonderful idea. But I just wonder if, as it grows, and you have different vendors who want to participate, may not meet that definition. And I'm just wondering how that affects its compliance, and is there a workaround for that?
Can I answer that?
Sure.
We told a lot of vendors.
By coming up to the podium again, sorry. Thank you.
We've told a lot of vendors no, right? So if it doesn't fit what a typical farmer's market is, or it doesn't fit Victory's church, their idea, we've said no. We've had a wine vendor that wanted to come out there that we had to say no to, and it broke my heart to say no to her. She was an amazing lady, and I understood where she was coming from. They're not going to sell alcohol there, but at the end of the day, between Pocosin selling alcohol and be partnering with the church, it just wasn't the right fit. So we've told vendors no. So if they don't fit the traditional farmer, we're not going to let someone out there and sell handguns. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna fit a traditional farmers market that I grew up going to, as opposed to a flea market. It's not a flea market; it's a farmers market.
I guess that was my concern, if you had a vendor that sells, let's say, jewelry as an example. Most farmers market would have a vendor of that description there,
We do.
which
but-
doesn't really meet the criteria there, and I just make sure y'all don't have any issues with that,
No,
because
we don't, yeah, no, so the young lady that comes out there that sells jewelry makes all of it herself. So it's not something that she's buying from somewhere else and reselling. Everything that she makes with her own hands. So it's created by someone.
It's kind of like an art show that's juried. You're going to jury the people that you have come in. It's like the
Absolutely.
Art League, when they do the seafood festival, they jury the people that come in. If they, it will be, the onus will be on, yeah, to do it.
So it's self-police then, you do all of the, you know, the citing.
Absolutely, yes. And maybe that's a good thing or a bad thing, and maybe I need some direction on that. But, you know, if it's not a good fit or we have too many of the same vendor, I mean, if we had, 8 folks that wanted to come out there and sell barbecue, right now we have one and we want to limit it to one. And if you haven't tried them, you should. It's Pig Jam. It's the best brisket I've ever had. Just a little plug for Pig Jam.
Where's
But
that? I'm sorry.
I said, if you ever want to try it, he's got the best brisket you've ever had in your life, Pig Jam. But we won't have several of the same vendors unless it's a farm. We'll allow 2 farms. We'll allow 2 bakers, but and so forth. But we don't want 10 of the same vendor. We try to police what we have. We want a variety for everyone.
Oh, I think it's a wonderful idea. I mean, I just
And
want to
so
make
far,
sure.
the vendors have been extremely satisfied. Nothing makes me happier than by about 11:45 we start seeing vendors pack up because they've already sold out.
How often do you hold the farmer's market? Is there a set?
Yes,
late-
sir. So that's every Saturday from 9 to 1. It's not rain or shine because, we don't have the benefit of York County where they have the parking structure. If it's raining there, they just move into the structure there. We don't have that. And again, we're in a field. So if it's too muddy, we don't want to put people at risk for falling and twisting an ankle or getting stuck or anything like that. So the last 2 weeks we've canceled. Thank goodness we've got some great weather this Saturday. We've got a huge market set up. Pig Jam will be there, as well as, the Rising Tide Bakery. If you've not been there, please come out and try it. Rising Tide Bakery has the best cinnamon rolls I've ever had in my life, so come and buy a 4-pack and enjoy it. But fresh farm eggs, I mean, things like that, yes, you can go to Food Line and buy eggs or anywhere else for that matter, but to be able to, meet the person that's raising the chickens, that's buying the eggs, to me is just priceless.
So how many months of the year are you anticipating it to work?
So we started this year on June 6th. I would anticipate if this continues, that next year I'd like to start a month earlier. I'd like to start in May. Right now, we're just going to go through the second week in October. So we're 4 weeks away from really being done for the year. But it's generated a lot of excitement. Whenever we're not there, I get phone calls at 7 o'clock in the morning, and this is something I'd like to recreate. Every year. Until someone else takes it over, or my wife makes me stop.
So are you the one that makes the call whether or not it'll be held or not?
I talked to Jamie, the preacher there. He and I discussed it a lot. Like I said, at the end of the day, that's the church's property. We don't want to damage it. We've had a large vehicle stuck there that took us all day to get out. So I consult with Jamie, and actually, if I can swing by the police department, get a police officer, what are you guys' thoughts on this? But typically, I don't need, between Jamie and I, we can make that decision.
How do you put the word out if you're not having it?
Great question. So we started a Facebook page in June, and we have a ton of followers on that. We boost it as well, so we not just getting the word out, but just advertising it as well. We send an email to all the vendors so they know not to show up. We try to make the call within 24 hours the day before. This past week, we were lucky enough to get out 2 days before because we just saw the rain that we were getting. We also post it and boost it on Facebook so it's not going on. And that's why we moved to Victory, because Victory Church is located so far off of Yorktown Road. We were getting a lot of traffic, but you see the numbers. The first Saturday we opened was on Victory at the Victory Church, and with the COVID standards, we had to rope it off where we had to count the people coming in, count the people coming out. Everybody had to wear masks because that was so early with COVID. The restrictions were so tight. We had almost 1,000 people that first Saturday. Yeah, it was an amazing day. It really was. At that point, I realized this was a pretty good idea. So.
Well, I feel the research development parcel has been vacant for how many years under the designation? My concern would be, if and when we get lucky and we get this huge opportunity, that would you be okay in being sort of a temporary location there if we sell it to something bigger and better?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely, and that's what I love about Pocosin. I've talked to other folks that, I got phone calls after the fact, why didn't you consider putting it here, consider putting it there? We just pulled it off so fast, we didn't have that option, so yes, and I'll go back, I said this once before, the city of Pocosin from from planning, from taxation, Dave Callis, it has been wonderful. It's like they want this here. So, and I think the citizens want it here. So I think that it let you sell it, it goes away, and I've got nowhere to put the farmer's market. I know we can put our heads together and come up with another location.
I remember the Apple Man truck that used to come in the 70s, and he used to go up to the Shenandoah Valley and get fresh picked apples in season and come down and sell them on the corner of Earth Creek in Little Florida. And it didn't take long for that truckload of apples to be sold to the local.
Well, I tell you, 3 weeks ago, the Wilsons brought in a bunch of peaches. They were probably gone in an hour and a half. The peaches from Carolina. Like I said, this is why I do it. As I get a little bit older and I'm looking at my retirement years, I want to be able 20 years from now to walk through here with my grandkids and know that I had a little piece of this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any comments or questions?
Ms. Chairwoman, if I could just add something. We were trying to do our research to come up with, to write up this report and come up with conditions for it, and we realized that our definition of farmer's market is kind of restrictive, and as far as I can tell, has never really been used. We also mention flea markets once in the code, but never define it, which is nice. But compared to York County and other localities, the way we define these things is pretty insufficient. So if there's continued interest in a farmer's market or even flea markets, Planning Commission may choose to recommend in their comments to us consider amending these definitions to make them a little bit more inclusive of what constitutes a farmer's market in the current climate.
I'm really impressed with what gentleman has described as original, like from the. That would be a really nice definition to use in our situation. Get into flea markets, it's it's a whole different ball of wax, I think.
Your comments?
I would just, maybe to add on to that, not so much flea markets as much as I've seen little boutiques at farmers markets that are, selling little cover-ups. And I mean, they're the things that attract people there. So I would hate for us to be so restrictive that we limit it only to handmade products or produced on the farm products because, I mean, theoretically, Wilson, they're importing all the bulk of their produce in. They're not raising it on their farm. So I just don't think that should we change something that it should be so restrictive.
Yeah, because we already have some large flea markets that occur various times of the year. We have some flea markets already on,
Well,
one
that's
at the
true.
municipal park, I think, and,
That's true.
yeah, we already have some.
Couple
I
other
mean,
places.
yeah, and I agree with
Just
you.
my thoughts.
I don't think we should get too restrictive on that, like you.
Shannon, would that be captured by the shall not be interpreted for any other use that cannot be reasonably categorized as such? Does that kind of help give an umbrella definition of farmers markets?
I believe it does, but if someone were to try and push us on that, we probably would want to focus on changing the definition to something a little more representative of kind of events we're dealing with.
So any other discussion? Does anyone, or is anyone prepared to make a motion?
Ma'am, I'd like to make a motion that we approval of the conditional permit farmers market as written, with the caveat that if we need to expand that definition, we're open to do that.
So that's with a caveat, so you are saying that we should go ahead and expand that definition as part of your motion?
If we choose to.
If you choose to.
I think that would have to be two different motions.
Sounds like two.
Put it down the middle.
So, it sounds to me, and I don't know the proper order to amend that or not, but would the commission like to go ahead and come up with a different definition of farmer's market prior to a motion to accept?
I don't think so.
Thank God.
So just,
That's it. That's it.
okay, so
Yeah.
So right now, you're moving just to recommend this request as written.
Okay.
Is
yes.
that, am
Yeah,
I hearing that
yes,
correctly?
I'll rephrase my motion to approve the conditional permit as written.
Is there a second?
Commissioner Rebel, who seconded?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, with that, Commissioner Brennan,
Aye.
Commissioner Deaver,
Aye.
Commissioner Fixon,
Aye.
Commissioner Griebel,
I thought you'd already called me, so I've spoken for someone else.
No, I was asking if you were the one who seconded.
Oh, yes, okay, yes, aye.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No, you're perfect. Commissioner Shriver,
Aye.
Commissioner Stevens,
Aye.
Chairwoman Emmett.
Abstain. Okay, and that motion has passed.
Do they call you?
Okay. All right, and the next item for a public hearing is a request by the Board of Directors of Pocosin Animal Welfare Sanctuary applicants to modify their existing conditional use permit for an animal sanctuary at 181 Messick Road, tax map parcel 32-1-44, zoned R2 residential. And we will go ahead and open that up for a staff presentation.
Thank you. I think my computer might need to be logged on again.
Yeah, with that.
But I can talk without the computer for a while anyway. Let me get the microphone. Okay, go ahead. You just get up, pause over there first, and then we'll worry about,
Is it this one?
well, actually, I've already saved it on the, yeah, just put it up there. That'll be more accurate. Yeah, we
I
can
know,
solve that
I
either
agree.
way. Okay. Okay.
I'm sorry, I could
Right. Sorry about that, a little bit of technical difficulty. This is an application for a conditional use permit amendment for the Pocosin Animal Welfare Sanctuary. We've been down this road twice before. It was originally approved in 2013, and there was an amendment to go from 50 to 100 cats that passed in 2016. So basically, what they want to do is we've gotten some complaints on the property, or one complaint, and they have attempted to address that complaint. These three items are sort of threaded through the conditions, and I'll cover that here in just a minute. But essentially, they want to apply for appointments or volunteer visits limited between the hours of 7:30 and 8 p.m. daily. Exceptions that may occur may be due to cats going for spay or neutering or visits to the local veterinary hospital. So there will be some traffic potentially outside of 7:30 or 8, but it will be for those reasons. In addition, some cats may require medication to be given later than 8 p.m. The sanctuary has open hours for visitors, and this is a typo on my part. I misread their application. For visitors, Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 12 noon. I said 2 p.m. in the report because I misread their application. Number 2, due to existing vegetation, basically they removed vegetation because the cats were able to climb up the trees and hop out over the cat protection netting. So the volunteers cut that back, and what that's done is at the rear of the property, it's taken away some of that buffering between the Paul's property and the property to the front. And so they want to address that by, number 1, using some site obscuring fencing, maybe vinyl slats in the existing chain link and cat protection netting, or, maybe some other means that will screen the use. As far as the evergreens, and I'll get to the pictures here in a minute, but the evergreens, the original condition was to replace with evergreens 6 feet tall. The evergreens are not 6 feet tall, but they are on the inside of the fence. I'll show you a picture. I think a picture is probably worth 1,000 words on that one. And you'll see some other pictures as well from one of the speakers here. We've got speakers for and against here tonight. Number 3, Paul's volunteers will keep parking on the property at 181 Messick Road, which they own actually, but inside the gate or behind the driveway access of residents between the property gate and Messick Road. Paul's will not block the neighbor's access to their driveway. That's been an issue as well. I don't know if it was Paul's or who it was, but it's been an issue. I think I covered the background. Much like the farmer's market we just heard, our conditional use permit language allows this application to go forward. And in fact, this is basically how they got established back in 2013. At this point, I think it would probably be best to kind of go over the proposed conditions and how we arrived at them. As you can tell, there's 3 main things that kind of crisscross over the conditions. So condition number 1, and these are reflected in your resolution to approve, should you approve it. Hours of operation shall be limited between the hours of 7:30 and 8 p.m. daily. And then the allowed exceptions are limited to pickup of cats going for spaying or neutering, or visits to the local vet hospital, or B, staff visits to administer medications to cats requiring such medication after 8 p.m. This condition will basically account for all the traffic to the site. The subset of open hours from, 10 to 12, that's really a subset of that, and that will be, subject to the condition of hours of operation, and I've got a later permit that covers that. The original condition, number 2, was the use having 6 months from the issuance of this permit to provide the city with a plan outlining measures to ensure felines are kept within the confines of the property. They did propose such a plan to staff way back when, way before I got here. And the feature that was installed was chain link fence surrounding the parcel, along with the cat protection netting that deters cats from leaving the property. The condition has been satisfied, therefore, a long time ago. However, what I would say, or I would suggest, or staff would suggest, is that the continuation of the use of chain link fencing and cat protection netting shall be continued. The front fencing will be modified to be site obscuring. And that's, again, reflected in the resolution. Number 3, existing vegetation must be perpetually maintained for screening purposes. The needed replacement of vegetation that was previously removed, which is, we talked about that back property line, or front property line of Paul's, will consist of fencing sufficient for screening purposes, including cat protection netting, to be installed within 6 months. They mentioned in the application that they were going to get estimates, but I thought it was important to quantify some time within which they would be putting that up. Okay. Number 4, over the course of 1 year from the issuance of this permit, city staff will monitor the vegetation or fenced with cat protection netting area along the perimeter of the property. I think staff, from 1 year, if this is ultimately approved by city council and y'all recommend approval tonight, I think that it behooves us to do periodic inspections over the next year to make sure everything is installed the way it's supposed to be. The rest of them, not a whole lot of changes until we get to number 10, condition number 10. The sanctuary shall have open hours for visitors Monday through Saturday, limited to the hours of 10 a.m. to 12 noon. Again, that 2 p.m. is a misread on my part, so it's 12 noon. It is a new condition proposed to address neighbor concerns over the hours of which visitors may come to the site. This represents a subset of the traffic to the site that is addressed in condition 1. Number 11, Paul's volunteers shall park on the property at 181 Messick Road. Again, they own that sliver of property that goes to Messick Road, either inside the gate or behind the driveway access of residents between the property gate and Messick Road. Paul shall not block the neighbor's access to their driveway, which is a big part of the concern that's been raised. This new condition was proposed to address neighbor concerns over the potential blocking of driveways along the entrance to the site off Messick Road. Again, that sliver is owned by Paul's, but that doesn't mean that they should be blocking driveways. So, I included a bunch of pictures for you guys. Some of them were staff pictures, and some of them were provided by a nearby neighbor who is here tonight to address those. But I thought I would just go over the pictures that staff took when we visited the site last week. And I don't have a clicker, so forgive me. But what you can see right there, if I can walk away for just a second. That is the driveway off of Messick Road that goes back to the Paul's. It's part of Paul's property, but it goes back to the gate, which is that serves as the entrance to the cat sanctuary. This was our car parked. We're inside the Paul's facility at this point. And we're looking back towards Messick Road. You can see our car was there. The concern is that cars stack up on this road to an extent, and then that there's some cars that park in the side driveway. Now, whether that's Paul's or not, I don't know, but I'm just telling you what the concerns are. That's inside the sanctuary area. The driveway, and there's one of the residents there on the driveway who may be featured later. I'm not sure, but okay. This is yes.
Excuse me, if you go back to that image,
Sure.
I'm clear in my head where this driveway is versus this lane, this private road we're looking at, a private lane.
That's owned by Paul's. Yeah.
The driveway on the left is Paul's.
Let me go backwards here. That driveway that you're seeing going all the way back, that's Paul's, his driveway. It goes back to the gate, and that's where I am now. I'm at the gate.
The gate, your car is facing which way? Towards Messick?
My car is facing away from Messick.
Away from Messick.
Messick is in the background.
So Messick's behind you, you're coming up to the gate.
Right.
And where's that left driveway that we just saw? Beyond this gate?
Yes, beyond the gate.
Okay,
And I could
all
probably
right, I'm
show you
with you.
better in the aerial. Well, you can actually see that area back.
I got you, where that
Yeah,
red
sorry,
car
I
is.
don't have a clicker, but I don't think I have a clicker. Anyway, Okay, this is where the vegetation was removed. You can see that there's a chain link fence and there's the cat protection netting you can see on top of it. This is where the vegetation was removed, and what's been planted in its place is, they are evergreen trees, but they're not 6 feet tall. So what the applicant is proposing is to either use some green vinyl slats in that chain link fencing or some sort of other site obscuring material in that area. Here's another view of the same vantage point. And that's yet another view, and you can kind of see that the vegetation is, maybe 4.5 or 5 feet tall at this point. This is a fourth picture. I think we're hammering the point home here that we do have some vegetation that's been removed, and there is some existing fencing that will be updated to be site obscuring. That's the other side of the gate. This is all taken from just inside the gate to the Paul's property. Okay, and that's when you get a little further back into the Paul's property, you can actually see the driveway, which I pointed out in the aerial a little while ago. That's actually a cat shelter that's on the ground. This is some of the other property lines away, the side property lines, just trying to illustrate the point that they do have this cat protection netting and chain link fencing around the use. Sideways view of the same thing. That's side yard. You can see those trees are pretty high. I don't know exactly how tall the trees were that they cut down, but you can see that's a pretty thick buffer right there. And this is getting back towards the wetlands part, which that's cat house. And rather than show you all the pictures of the interior of the site, I chose to focus on the perimeter, since that seemed to be the main part of the problem. I'll be quiet at this point, let you ask any questions you might have. The applicants are here as well as a concerned neighbor, so you'll be hearing from them, I'm sure.
Any questions for Wally before we open up the public hearing?
Is there a limit to the number of vehicles that can be parked inside the compound?
There's not a numerical number, no.
In your professional
At the time
opinion?
of the original application, there were some words given towards being more residential in character in terms of the number of vehicles. But again, there was not a condition that came forward from that talked about number of vehicles that were
So
allowed
in
on the
your
property at one
professional
time.
opinion, how many cars that area could accommodate with the turnaround so that people can go in and turn around and then be backing out?
Well, if you're looking at that driveway area where that red vehicle is, 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 in there. And as far as the driveway outside the gate, you could probably park no more than 3 before you started to interfere with the driveways.
The concern on outside the gate is there's no turnaround spot.
That's correct. In
So
fact,
you'd have to- you'd have to
I
back-
ended up backing up all the way to the street when we went out there. So
from
there
a-
is no turnaround spot, yes.
So from a traffic just a purely traffic standpoint, from a safety, it would be beneficial to have vehicles to be able to go inside the compound and be able to turn around, point themselves to go out the driveway. Would that be
Yeah, the
fair?
driveway acts like a big hammerhead, really, or a T-square, if you will, from the street. So, yeah, it does provide the turnaround opportunity.
One of the other things that, talking about parking, is that during the hours that you have visitors, it might be advisable to have them have an appointment so you don't have 12 cars showing up at one time.
I think they try to work by appointment,
That would be,
except for people like us from planning who just show up out of the blue. But, yeah, I think they encourage appointments.
From some of the things I saw, they were backed up into the neighbor's
Yeah, there are
yard, so
some
that
pictures
doesn't,
that show a number of cars that are backed up.
I think that's what we're going to try to avoid.
Right.
The other thing is, where are the cats kept? In that house that I saw? Or are they outside or in shelters or?
Well, I'll let the applicant speak to that, but when I was there were several outside, but there was a lot still inside, in kind of that big building. Oh, gosh. I can't remember. Right where it says 181 West Road, that's a big building. Most of the cats were in there. There were some other, like that one that I showed in the aerial, there
Yeah.
are some other indoor areas for cats as well. But there were some outside at the time that we were there. So I'm not sure what the percentage is in terms of how many are outside and how many are inside.
For Wally? Right, thank you.
Wally, is the major complaint the traffic? Is that the issue?
Well, I think it's a combination of things. The traffic is certainly an issue. The buffering in the rear is clearly an issue, as that was circled as some areas that were on the supplementary materials that I gave you,
Okay.
which you'll have a chance to look at again tonight.
Okay.
But that was clearly, and people coming in at hours past 8 o'clock. So you wrap all those three up, and I think you've got it.
Any other questions, Libby? Or, okay.
Okay.
Okay, and at this time, we'll open up the public hearing for this agenda item. If anyone would like to address the Planning Commission, please do. And when you approach the podium, please state your name and address. I think that would be good. That seems to have a good microphone. Is that okay, Wally?
Oh, absolutely.
All right.
These ones are all automated, so they're going to kind of,
Yeah, kind of speed it up.
yeah. I think you do have the ability to stop it, though. Let's
I hope
see
I can
here.
do that.
Let's see here. Let's pull this up.
Molly, before you leave, I do have one more question that I wanted to ask. Does the city of Pocosin have a cat ordinance?
We do not. We have some regulations for kennels, but as far as sanctuaries of this nature, we do not. I know that one of the ordinances out there was a spay, neuter, and release type thing. This being a sanctuary, there's really not any release after the spaying and neutering. They hope to adopt them, but they keep them on the site so that they'll be well fed and hopefully not kill all the songbirds in the area. And I'm a cat lover, so I know how that goes. We keep them ours inside. I didn't used to go for that, but now I do. I'm sorry, I'm
Hit play.
digressing here. I'll
You can
hit that.
hit play right there.
Okay. All right. And if you need to freeze it, you can.
Okay. All right. Hi, thank you for having me. My name's Andrea Nunley. I moved to 179 Messick Road, and while I was unpacking, a man walked up and said his name was Jim. He was the manager of Paws. And if I was to have any problems with them, to please call him first. He offered his cell phone number. He went on to tell me that no one would park past the garage that was ours. And he proceeded to point to the corner of that garage. He said it may get 2 cars deep, but not past the garage. We shook hands, and off he went. That was Sunday, December 15, 2019. Well, the day came shortly after. I was leaving early Saturday morning to go to work, and I had my first confrontation. That confrontation was me trying to pull out of my driveway while somebody was trying to pull into the driveway. They motioned for me to go ahead, to go down Messick Road to the boat ramp and basically turn myself around and then go back where I needed to go, which was to work out of Pocosin. As I pulled the window down and advised him I'm going this way, that he needed to back up, He didn't appreciate that, so he went down and turned around in the neighbor's yard and came back and went on in. At that time, after an exchange of text messages back and forth with Jim does ID the gentleman, and Jim texts back, "We share this lane, and there will be inconvenient times for you." Jim also texts back that from the front of your garage to our gate is ours. Next issue I finally called him out on was 3 cars deep. His reply is, "They aren't blocking you." That was it. At this time, I started looking into the agreement PAWS has with the city of Pocosin. My main focus is the influx of vehicles coming and going. Starts as early as 6:13 a.m. or 7:15 a.m. Not only are they arriving this early, but by the 3rd or 4th vehicles pulling into the driveway and stopping by our chimney and windows that are right up against the driveway, having conversations while our windows are up, or just hearing them through the house. "Hey, where are we going to park? Did you see the sunflowers that you planted right there?" The noise, the not slowing down to turn off from Messick Road into the driveway, where our front steps actually empty into the gravel. Me trying to fix the potholes, but can't move the packed gravel to even make a difference. Texting Jim once again to say, I was trying to fix the potholes so when the older pickup trucks come down the driveway, we don't hear it squeaking, making a lot of noise, our dog barking inside the house to let us know that there's cars coming and going. My youngest is actually in the bedroom right beside that driveway. The amount of noise, the movement, the influx of vehicles, the traffic is just overwhelming. We've had FedEx packages on the front porch numerous times where I have actually contacted FedEx to come back and pick them up. People randomly bringing old stuff, leaving it at our front door. There has been times when PAWS has meetings, and they have those meetings somewhere else, but I get people that are at my front door thinking they're just going to walk on in when I open the front door, that the PAWS meeting is there. They then proceed to park in the back driveway or turn around. Now to mention the neighbors who say, well, I don't own the right of the driveway. One neighbor said that she had the right to park in the driveway because she gave a lot to PAWS. One neighbor across the street said they can use the driveway to care for that neighbor's landscaping needs, as I'm a renter and I am not a homeowner. Basically, I'm just a come here. This driveway has kids walking up and down, not to mention adults, just to go see what's inside the gate and then walk back. The shuffling of vehicles in and out, making room for more, backing traffic up on Messick Road. Driveway is now a 2-lane road. The constant coming and going, say there's 5 cars in, then 10 minutes later 2 more appear. Then you have to get the 5 cars out. So you have to back up and cause a traffic jam. It's just noise after noise, and it's all day long. There's the excuse of coming in at 10 and 11 p.m. at night to give medicine to sick cats. If that cat is so sick, maybe it needs to go to the house to be cared for at that caregiver's house. Inviting over Chief Ward to discuss the driveway and the PAWS traffic, I did that one afternoon. Showing him picture after picture, Chief Ward said he grew up on this road. He can see the tightness of my driveway with all the PAWS traffic. He understood how I could have issue from what I showed him. There are text messages back from the previous tenants. Their names were Chase and Logan. PAWS would call or text Chase and Logan, per Chase and Logan texting me and telling me this, that they would have an event or that they needed the entire driveway. So Chase or Logan would have to park in different places of their yard to accommodate PAWS. There were no parking signs that the owner has, as I've had conversations with Norman. He is the owner of the property. Years of dealing with PAWS, he says. He has parking signs and they're still underneath the house. Some have gone missing that he did put out. How he was raising the house at one point, he was in Florida, when Box Construction couldn't get their truck in or out because of PAWS traffic. There's a gentleman by the name of Chris and Joe Box who shared a conversation with me on the phone about their issues they had while raising that house and the amount of traffic and what they had to deal with. A neighbor friend of Norman's, who actually lives across the street, his name is Mike, he would contact Norman, per Norman calling me and telling me this, that the cars were all the way down the driveway, that you wouldn't believe how many cars are in your driveway right now. Those were the conversations that Norm had. I went ahead and started to think I might as well do some due diligence. I contacted some cat organizations, dogs and cats. I wanted to see what their hours of operations were. I wanted to see what their volunteers were. The surrounding areas, Google Maps. I also went on different websites and looked at that. And by the way, I noticed that PAWS has no hours listed on their webpage, and I have printed that out. In summary, I asked, they need to have guidelines to the volunteering visits, set hours, and set the number of vehicles coming and going. Way too many people, vehicles, way too much traffic, way too much shuffling. As you can see from the pictures, it's all day long. Once again, this issue did precede me, as I did follow back to find that out. And this does continue on. I do appreciate you listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have any questions?
The photo that you showed, one of the earlier ones, you only have one vehicle or two vehicles?
I have one vehicle, which is right there, that Jeep that is inside the driveway. Norman came, I'm sorry, that's my vehicle. My daughter, who's 26 years old, and then my other daughter, who doesn't drive, she had to start parking in the front in the grass where the water drains so she can get out and get to work when she needs to go, because she leaves earlier than I do sometimes.
So did I see a photograph where a PAWS vehicle was actually parked in front of your garage? Is that what I saw or no?
Yeah, if you keep watching the slides, I might have to go back, but you can see there's the two cars, then there's a gap in between them. Norman, the owner, was nice enough, and he came around and said, I'm going to build this privacy fence. It's probably going to block a little bit. There's a FedEx package. Norm put the fence up out of the kindness of his heart, free of charge, and then they started parking to the end of the fence. So there are pictures to show that too. It may need to be rewound. I have been taking pictures since December of 2019. I have been dealing with neighbors and a lot of issues. It has affected our way of life.